All right, so business is about confidence. And this month we're gonna be talking about competition and how you measure up. And a lot of times we might think of this as a threatening kind of conversation, or, well, we can't really know what our competition is doing. And so why bother even talking about it? It's just gonna scare us, make us lose confidence, or we're just gonna get lost in research and really never come to a conclusion. Well, it's important to be able to speak with confidence about your business and about exactly how you fit in. What are your strengths? What do you offer the market? And so for your own sake, for your ability to sell confidently and clearly, and then also for everybody who works for you and everybody who even knows you or hears about you. All right, so how are we gonna do that? All right, well, it's a simple 3-step process. And it starts out with a SWOT analysis. Now, many of you may have already written a SWOT analysis, but what we're gonna do now is we're not gonna talk about a ton of research, going to the internet or anything like that. What we're gonna talk about is, what do you know right now? And you may put this together with what your team knows right now, but get in a room and write your SWOT analysis. And the workflow goes like this. You start with we like to use a quad chart, and you have your strengths. So you catalog all your strengths, then you figure out what they are. You may even go a little bit into detail and talk about what do you mean by that. And so that you have some level of detail. What makes us good at this, right? And so you understand yourself a little bit. The next thing you do is talk about weaknesses. And weaknesses aren't anything to be afraid of as long as you're blunt, because you're gonna come up with some things that are things that you can actually fix. And they're gonna come up with some things in weaknesses that you just shouldn't worry about. So once you've categorized those, then you go down to opportunities. So far we've just talked about strengths and weaknesses, which are inside the brand, right? They're things about the company. But as we go to opportunities and threats, we start talking about outside the company. So with opportunities, what you want to talk about is, given our strengths and weaknesses, what opportunities are out there for us to pursue? Then what you want to do is talk about threats. And this is really where we start getting into the information that helps us understand our competition. So with threats, classically in a SWOT analysis, you're talking about direct threats, direct competition. You might talk about indirect competition like replacement goods. If you're an accounting firm, you might see other accountants as direct competition, and you might see like an online program or online training or something like that as indirect competition, or maybe not doing your taxes at all, or not doing accounting at all as indirect competition. You might also list the economy and things like that. And so go ahead and list those things out. But once you do that, that takes us to the next step. So now you set the table, you've written your SWOT analysis, and now it's time to do some further analysis. And what we're gonna focus on here is we're gonna focus on a couple of things, you and your competition. So if you're looking at a quad chart, you know, strengths up here as you're looking at it, weaknesses down here, you're gonna compare these two. Sorry, strengths, threats, and you're gonna compare those two. All right, so now is the comparison. And so self-esteem experts will tell you, don't compare yourself with other people. We are going to compare you with other people. So what you want to look at is a couple of different things. You want to say, what can the competition do, right? What can they do? What should they be able to do given what we know about them? And that's one question. The next question is like it, but different. And that's, what do they do? And the reason this is different is because they may be able to do something, but they're not doing it. And so you may think something's easy for you, they're not doing it. So you look at what they do, and that'll help you understand them and how they interact with you as a brand in the market. And then what do they care about? And so why do we care about this? Well, we talk a lot about branding here. And so what we're trying to do in the end of this, the goal is really to find out how your strengths express your values and how to best make those connect. And so when we're looking at other companies, we want to do the same. If they care about something very specific and you care about that exact same thing, well, that'll be an interesting interaction with you and them in the market, because you'll both be going after the same people for the same reasons. But it's highly unlikely. And so if you run into that, I would love to hear about it, so please let me know. But what you want to do then is you want to look at your strengths and you want to look at their strengths. Why are they a threat, right? And so you talk about things about them, what they can do, what they do, and then why they do it. And you compare that with your list of strengths. And here's the key, here's the real analysis. If they do something well, then you want to make sure and if they do it better than you want to make sure and not count that as one of your strengths. Because your strengths are defined by the competition. And so if you say this is a strength of mine, but someone else is better at it than you are, or even a lot of people are better at it than you are, you're not going to be able to brag about that because people are going to know that's not true. And you'll know that's not true. All right, so that brings us to the next step of step 2, the next part of step 2, which is dig into it a little bit. I just told you that if they have a strength and you have a strength, then you mark it off as a strength. But there's an exception to that, and really it has to do with categories. You don't want to mark off a whole category, you want to mark off a strength. So here's what I mean. Oftentimes what we do is we list a category like service amongst our strengths, and we stop there. But a lot of times service has many different manifestations, many different combinations of activities that make you good at service. So although your competition may brag about great service, but they have long wait times, let's say, for calls, and it's a service business. You can't schedule with them for months, but with you can schedule in the next week, maybe the next couple of days. All these things matter in service, and it's very unlikely that someone is better than you at every single area of service. So what's the point? Well, the point is get away from marking off categories like service and get to talking about groupings of service and areas of service that will be a benefit to your client. All right, so that's step 2. The final step is you want to build on those advantages. So now that you know what the advantages are, now that you know where you stand out, you want to talk about how to build on those, how to build your message. All right, so the first thing is, how do your strengths help you best live out your values? This is super important, and this is really the whole point. So how do your strengths help you live out the values that you have? So if your value is, well, we want to help so-and-so, your goal is we want to help so-and-so do something great, do this great thing. Your values are probably aligned with that. And so how do your strengths help that to happen? And now you have a why that gives oomph to that, to all your strengths, and it makes sense of all your strengths. You may even have a set of strengths, 2 of which don't even fit into those values. And if that's the case, then you have to really think about whether you even want to talk about them or not. All right, so the next thing you do is, can I shift what I offer? Can I shift toward my advantages? Can I shift my product offerings or service offerings toward my advantages, toward my values? And then finally, how do these truths help me determine how I speak about my company, about my position in the market, and about my offerings? So remember, the whole point of this is to make sure you're able to speak with confidence and clarity about your advantages and where you stand with regard to the competition. And so if you can talk about your values, what you care about, and you talk about your mission in terms of those values translate to your mission, and that mission translates, and values translate into your product offerings, now you're well positioned and well defined to be able to speak about your business in reference to the competition.